Hey guys, welcome to the film room. We're about to cover a defensive philosophy that the Baylor Bears run that is a no-middle defense. The four areas we're going to look at is how they close out, how they rotate, how they guard ball screens, and what I believe is their X factor that makes them special. This defensive philosophy starts with how you close out. Just like every other defense, it sets the tone for what you're trying to accomplish. And what Baylor does consistently is they close out with an inside hand, and they always want to shade the offensive player to his inside shoulder to force them away from the middle. Successfully closing out is one of the hardest things to do defensively, and they are very consistent at getting that inside hand up, closing out to shade the inside shoulder, and forcing things away from the middle of the paint. After studying their defense, they break the court up into thirds, and the middle third of the court is known as the chest zone. And the reason why is they want for defenders to meet ball handlers with their chest when they try and dribble penetrate. They are very disciplined at not hand checking people to avoid the 10-1-4 foul, and they meet guys with their chest, they slide their feet, and they focus on not giving up direct driving lanes to the basket. So even though the defensive philosophy is no middle, in the chest zone, the goal is no paint touches. So you will see 1 through 5, Baylor focuses on not letting anybody get to paint. So even as this ball handler drives and takes this pull-up, this would be a successful possession because he never touched paint. And the reason this is so important to them is because when guys do drive middle, it creates opportunities for them to make plays not just for themselves, but for other people. Then we get to this outer third area known as the side zone. Once the ball gets here, they're going to be more intentional about getting to that top foot and really forcing the offensive player to have to drive to the baseline. Now please pay attention, this is one of the most important things in this defense. They are not allowing somebody to drive to the rim. The goal is to get them to the baseline outside of the paint. Straight line drives to the rim will kill your defense. Now the last area is what I refer to as the dead zone. I'm not sure what they call it, but it is the corner. When the ball gets to the corner, they shade so far to the inside that they essentially force you to have to drive baseline. They want to make you so uncomfortable in that corner that they force a drive so that they can help. Now, if you already run this defense or you're considering implementing it, you don't have to run these three zones the same way. I just want you to see that this is how Baylor's philosophy works. Now, the thing that makes all of these closeouts work is how they rotate. So anytime that the ball does get driven baseline as they are anticipating, they are going to have what I'm going to refer to as a goalie or a help man who is going to rotate over with early help, and then their back defenders are going to be your rotation or your help the helper guys. And the great thing about this defense is that you can do it over and over. You force baseline, your goalie early helps, and you have your backside rotation guys who are ready for the pass out so that they can scramble. Now that's how it works if it gets driven from the corner. If it gets driven from the slot or wing area, it looks the same. Your goalie is going to rotate over. Now you have a help man, which is typically known as a crackback, who rotates when the goalie leaves for his early help. Now this defense is vulnerable just like every other defense, because if you force baseline drive and the goalie rotates over to help and you don't have an on-time crackback, that's how you give up these dump downs to the post players. And this is difficult to do because your defense has to be on a string with each other. As this baseline drive happens and the goalie rotates over, the crackback is late and they give up an open dunk to a 45 cutter. So please know that just by running this defense, it doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to get stops and never get scored on. But when you do it correctly and you force the ball to this goalie and you crack back correctly, that's when steals and live ball turnovers are going to start to happen. Having the goalie in the right place can cover a lot of mistakes. You'll see in this possession that they give up middle and they end up getting into a ball screen, which forces two people on the ball, but because the goalie is rotating on time, they end up getting a steal on a possession where they made a pretty big mistake. So in review, the chest zone is here in this middle third, the side zone is over here about free throw line extended and down, and then you have the corner, or what I would call the dead zone, that forces to the goalie, and then you have your backside rotation help. So now we'll talk about a key part in their defense, which is how they guard ball screens. They will do what's called icing or downing a ball screen. And they do this because it's consistent with their defensive philosophy of no middle. So in a ice ball screen coverage, the on-ball defender jumps to the inside, forcing the ball handler baseline, and the big comes over and essentially soft traps. You're gonna get a stunt on the backside as the big chests out and you rotate from there. The goal of this defense is to not allow the guard to come off of the ball screen and get to the middle of the floor. Now the backside defenders are equally as important as what happens on the ball. As this step-up screen is set, you're going to see these backside defenders do what's called tagging or bumping. So they are responsible for making sure if the big rolls, they're in position to slow them down. But when the ball does get skipped out to the perimeter, they still have to close out and not give up middle drives. Now the purpose of this ball screen coverage is you want to make someone other than the ball handler make a play. So as you can see, this guard gets forced to the sideline in this ice ball screen coverage. They're going to throw it out to the big. They're going to give a short stunt and live with this big shooting an 18-footer to try and beat them. Now another way that Baylor keeps the ball out of the middle is when there are dribble handoffs, they will switch to impact, meaning they don't just switch and let somebody drive middle, they are aggressively up the line keeping the ball on the side. Then as K-State gets into this step-up ball screen, they're right in the same position we just looked at, and it's so important for these tag players to get all the way to the midline because when this big rolls, if you don't get all the way over there, that's how you give up these plays. But the most important part of their defense is what I refer to as their X factor. And what it is are these three things. Number one, their relentless effort. This defensive scheme works because Baylor has dogs. They fly around, they contest passes, they close out, they are aggressive, they are relentless, and they speed you up and impose their will. The second X factor that I see is their ability to create 50-50 balls. They are able to generate so many loose balls because of their active hands and their anticipation, and then they're typically first to the floor to recover those. And the last X factor is their willingness and ability to take charges. This team sacrifices their body, they get in the right position, they anticipate contact, and they are ready and willing to get on the floor to get turnovers. If you have more questions about this defensive philosophy, please hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what you're wondering, if there's more tape that you want to see, or anything that I can do to help you with your defensive scheme. I don't believe that there's one right way to play defense, but I personally have had a lot of success coaching this defensive philosophy and would love to help you as well. Thank you so much for coming through. We'll see you next time in the film room.